Okay, so welcome to Chapter 5. Chapter 5, for many of y'all, is going to be the most interesting chapter in the book. It's all about the valuation of stocks and how we get there. What's actually interesting about Chapter 5 isn't the fact that we're dealing with stocks. What's interesting is that you already have the skill set and the tool set in place to get this job done. And so this is actually going to be one of the easiest chapters we talk about, but we're going to get our heads around how the stock market works a little bit and that kind of stuff. So let's get started right away talking about how stocks are valued amongst the different types. So first of all, let's talk about the different types of equities that we have. So for example, we have debt. Let me get this thing in the right place. I'm going to start inking. Okay, so we have debt and we have equity. And these are the two manners that we can bring we can bring money into the company. We can bring money in terms of debt, or we can bring money in terms of equity. We've already talked about debt in terms of bonds. Now we're going to talk about equity. So equity is basically the money that comes in, and there are two types here. We'll get to into a sec. We'll get there in a second. And what we really want to know is what is it about the stocks that creates value, or how do we measure the value? What's the price of the stock, and is it a good price for us? So let's skip some of this. So common stakeholders are residual claimants. What that means is that when the company has money, it has to go to everybody else first. It has to go to employees. It has to go to debtors and claimants, such as accounts payable. And then when all of these other people are taken care of, then we can talk about uh, debtors. So debt gets paid left, bondholders and that kind of thing. And then finally at the end, whatever money's left over, then it goes to shareholders. That's what the word residual means. Residual means that whatever's left over after going through all of these, then that all of these guys get paid first, then everything else goes to the owners or to the shareholders. That's what they mean by residual claimants. These are usually higher risk, but they usually end up having higher return. So we have two types of stock that we really think about. We have preferred stock and we have common stock. So there's preferred and common. And you would do well to know the differences between preferred and common stocks. What is the difference? Preferred stock gets dividend payments on a regular basis. Preferred stock may be mostly held by corporations, but it does, more to the point, they do not have voting rights. Do not have voting rights. No voting rights. That's the first one. And the second one is that the dividends are going to be steady. They're going to be, it's a steady cash flow. It's a more dependable cash flow than a common stock valuation. Preferred stock, this valuation process here is real simple. It looks very much like something we've looked at before. And actually, let me see if I can skip this for a second. Let me see if we can skip this for a second, and we'll come back to it. This guy, well, let's just do it now. This guy right here is nothing more than the stock price today is equal to the dividend payment over the rate. And it should look very much like something we've covered before. It's a perpetuity. Remember the perpetuity that we covered in the previous chapter? It basically took whatever the payments are, whatever the annual payments divided by R, would give us the price of the perpetuity. This is the exact same thing. And the reason this exists is going to be apparent here in a moment, and we'll talk about it again. Here are some very basic common stock stuff. Here is the stockholders' equity or common stockholder voting rights. Let's go through these real quick. So what can you do? You can vote. As if you own common stock as opposed to preferred stock, you can vote. You don't really need to know all this stuff. This is important. You have no legal rights to receive dividends. What does this mean? This is the where a preferred stock had a preferred stock is going to have mandatory dividends, or at least steady dividends. If in a common stock, you may or may not get dividends depending on whether or not the firm wants to pay them out, and depending on whether or not there is actually any money at the end of the quarter. So that's the major differences. Number one, with common stock, you get a vote, but you may or may not necessarily get dividends. So how do we value common stock? The return on investment for a common stock is right. Let's do it in green. The return on investment common stock is here. The return is equal to the dividends over the initial price, right? So basically what this means is that you have a dividend in period 1. So let's say you buy the stock in period 0. In period 0, you buy the stock. You know what? Let's do a chart here this way. 0, 1, 2, 3, and then this keeps going forever. You buy here and you sell here, but you also at time period 1 also get a dividend. You get a dividend in every period, but obviously you're not, since you don't own the stock in period 2 or period 3, you don't get those. You get this one, you buy, you sell, and you get this dividend here. So what does this mean? It means that you have certain cash flows. The first one is the dividend. So you have the dividend in period 1. Then you take advantage of the sales price. That would be the price in period 1. But you have to subtract from that price the actual amount you paid for in period 0. So we only keep whatever the growth is. And since we take everything to period 0, this is going to give us some percentage return. That's what that means. The price of the stock then is estimated by using this price of the stock equation. All right, let me see if I can't make some space here. So what does this mean? This means that we take the dividend and the future price of the stock and we discount it by the total number of periods. That's all this is. And this should look very similar. This is just a discount. This is just a discounting factor. That's it. So we've done this before, but instead of having one lump sum, you have a dividend and then you have the price for which the stock sold or will sell in period 1. And that, when we discount it from, let me pick another color. And this guy here is basically price sub 1, price here, sub 1 when we sell it, plus this dividend in dividend period 1 at the point of sale. We discount that back, just like we did our other stuff. You discount that back to time 0, and that gives you an estimation of what the period should be. So how do we determine what that looks like? This is where things get interesting. This is nothing more than a discounting in each period, right? This is time period 1, this is time period 2, this is time period 3, this is time period 4, this is time period 5. As we go forward, this looks like that perpetuity that we were coming from, that perpetuity. This looks like the annuity perpetuity that we value, right? This is why the price of the preferred stock is equal to the dividend over the rate. Real simple. And when we look at this, that's basically what we're doing when we pull it out. And you'll find that that is nothing more than the present value of the stock at time period 0. And it's basically just the discounted 1 plus r to the n or whatever it is plus blah, 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 blah. Each one of these discounted back, discounted back, discounted back, discounted back, discounted back.